in some of the areas we've been talking about has gone.
More details for the rest of the show. Now, they say the ocean floor resembles another world. If so, our next guest is the underwater astronaut covering it.
Dawn Wright is a world-renowned oceanographer and geographer who has explored everywhere from the Antarctic to the underwater volcanoes surrounding Japan. She's in Australia this month to meet with the government and industry leaders, and we're thrilled to say she joins us now on the couch. Welcome to News Breakfast.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Dawn.
It's wonderful to be here.
Dawn, can I ask you the first question? Because you were one of the first African-American women in the early 90s, wasn't it, to go down in a submersible. What was it like? What is it like to be so far down?
Well, we think so much about outer space, and we're so enamored with the stars, and we look up and we get instant gratification from seeing the stars. So oftentimes when we're going under the water, when we're going to the ocean floor, that's inner space. And in a way, it's another way of looking at stars, because when I was in my first dive, we descended below the light level. So you see the light in the upper parts of the ocean, then it gets pitch black dark. And we saw an underwater fireworks show from these little creatures called siphonophores that were bumping into each other, and their little bioluminescent material was exploding into the water column. And then as we descended all the way to the seafloor, it was like being on the moon. So it was like being an astronaut. Sometimes we're called aquanauts as well. But it is fantastic because you feel as though you could open the door to the submersible and just walk around on the surface the way that the astronauts did back in the 60s and 70s. And this is a wonderful time to be thinking about this because it was, of course, 50 years ago that Apollo 11 landed on the moon. And now there's so much attention, as it should be, on really discovering the ocean floor and the oceans, of which we only know about 15% in detail in terms of the water in the oceans and the ocean floor as well.
That's a big gap. So how important is it that we fill in the rest of the other 85% for all of us to have a much better understanding of this storm?
It's absolutely extremely important to fill in the rest, because how can we take care of this planet? How can we understand this planet? How can we protect it if we don't know the totality of it? We have better maps in terms of the topography or the ups and downs of our planet, better maps of the moon and better maps of Venus and even Mars than we have of the oceans, of the Earth, because the Earth is an ocean planet. And it's very hard to see through the water. So we have trouble seeing on our own planet because of 71% of it being covered by water.
You've arrived in Australia in a very intense debate about climate change, which I know you're interested in, and how Australia is treating its environment. What are the messages you're going to be giving, or the conversations you think you'll be having with authorities while you're here?
So in terms of understanding our environment and monitoring it and managing it, it's really important to pay attention to where we are putting our sensors, to not be afraid to have these sensors in our forests, in our communities, to collect the data that we need to get a full picture. Sometimes we call this a situational awareness of our communities, especially in your case with all of the fires that you're having in your country. I'm from California, so I can totally relate to that. And the software company that I work for specializes in that, in terms of providing environments, cities, communities with this type of situational awareness through geography, through locations. And we can get this from cameras, we can get them from sensors, we can get them from photographs and so forth.
Do you think the strategy Australia, though, has been taking needs to change, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm not as familiar with the strategy here in Australia. My understanding, especially from the government agencies that I'll be talking with, is that they are doing everything possible, given the resources that are available in terms of mapping and monitoring. The next step, though, is really to do the analysis of this, especially if we're going to be able to predict conditions. And especially if we're going to be able to manage activities of people, such as evacuations from areas ahead of fires and recovery of areas and so forth.
One part of the ocean, Dawn, of great concern to Australians is, as you'd know, the Great Barrier Reef, damaged by the effects of climate change, amongst other things in recent years. In your view, as somebody who studies the oceans, is the reef salvageable? Can parts of it that have been destroyed be saved?
There's always hope. But with the Great Barrier Reef, it's very challenging, very difficult because of its size. I understand that the Great Barrier Reef is larger than Victoria and Tasmania combined.
Pretty big.
And so at this point, there's really too much of it for scientists to map and to monitor in detail. We can see the Great Barrier Reef from space and from aircraft, but we still need to actually be in and on the reef in order to understand the intricacies of how the reef is doing, responding to and recovering to all the damage that we're doing to it. And so my colleagues at the University of Queensland are doing such a fantastic job there. That Global Change Institute, led by Professor Ove Higgelberg, he's one of my friends, and he's one of the leading lights in the oceanographic community in terms of coral reef dynamics and what we need to do in terms of science-based, evidence-based policy making to help these areas recover. So there's always hope.
Dawn Wright, it's been great to have you in. Deep Sea Dawn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy your time here in Australia.
I most certainly will. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in, Dawn.
Thank you.